These rocky shores where I call home, where my heart longs to be. Whenever I roam, it's these rocky shores, it's where I long to be. Yes, it's these rocky shores, they are home to me.
Whenever I leave here, it hurts me so, with tears in my eyes. Oh, I hate to go. There ain't no work, and the kids need new clothes. The bills need paying, so off I must go.
These rocky shores, where I call home, where my heart longs to be. Whenever I roam, yes, these rocky shores, it's where I long to be. Yes, these rocky shores, they're home to me.
I think to myself, where did it all go? The life I once had on the ocean's mighty road. With tears in my eyes and my head in my hands, away from my family, I hope they understand.
That is these rocky shores, where I call home, it's where my heart longs to be. Whenever I roam, it's these rocky shores, where I long to be. Yes, these rocky shores, they are home to me. Yes, these rocky shores, they are home to me.
Good evening. Welcome to This Week in Review. Tonight's stories include: this month is Violence Prevention Month. School board elections were held on Tuesday. Update on the Family Resource Center at A.J. Matthews School. Constable McDougall will be along with the court report. These stories, plus community events, VBS Playbill, Off the Rack, and more coming up after this.
Just look at her. What a difference. Till a few months ago, we thought kidney dialysis was her only chance. But then a kidney donor was found. Someone took the time to sign a donor card and tell their family their wishes. Please, discuss organ donation with your family and sign a donor card today. You'll give someone like Michelle a second chance.
This message was brought to you by the Kidney Foundation of Canada and your local station.
Zone 1 of School District Number 4, Burgeo, Ramia, Grey River, and Francois have a new representative following Tuesday's school board election. Once the polls closed and the votes were tabulated on Tuesday afternoon, here in Burgeo, incumbent Ann Parsons received 117 votes, while her challenger, Sam Fiander, received 137 votes. Once these were added to those for the zone, Sam Fiander came out with 412 votes, and Ann Parsons received 198 votes. Here in Zone 1, only slightly over 24% of eligible voters actually came out to cast their ballot. I spoke with the workers hired to oversee the operation of the new Family Resource Center being set up at A.J. Matthews School. speaking with Corwin Skinner and Michelle Mercer, two family resource assistants. They've been hired by the Community Actions Committee in Stephenville to run a family resource center here in Burgeo. When do you expect to have the center up and running?
Well, the date is really unknown. Depends on the toys and donations. Basically, the quicker we get them in, the quicker the center will be up and running.
Michelle, what ages does the center cater to?
Well, we're starting off from 2 to 3-year-olds, and if there's any children out there that's close to 4, there's no problem. They can come in with their parents. It's really mainly for 0 to 6, but where we're starting off from scratch, that we need to get materials. It's just a lot of materials to get, so we're just going to start off from 2 and 3-year-olds because there's a lot of materials to get.
So how many children do you have registered for the center thus far?
According to the assessment that was drawn up, we have 21 people.
Okay, so is it too late for interested parents to add their children's names to your list?
Nope, there's not actually. This was an assessment that was done before we were hired, actually. So the parents that did put their names down with the children, we did contact them, and most all of them are interested. But we will be contacting the public to see if there's any more parents and children interested.
Okay, that was my next question actually. I understand the Family Resource Center is designed for parents as well as children?
Yes, actually, it's for parents and children to come in here. It's free play. It's not structured at all. There's a parent corner here. The parent corner is designed if parents want to come in and get information, just browse through to see if there's anything that they're interested in. For example, they want to learn nutrition for young children, or if they have a problem, for example, their child's sucking their thumb and they want to try and get them out of it. There's information here, and if there's not information here that they need, we will get it for them. Plus, the children and the parents can interact here around the center. It's whatever the child want to play with, they can go ahead and play with it. And as for the parents, interact with the other parents, plus the children interact with the other children.
Okay, so what times will the center be open?
Well, we more or less going by a schedule now. We got drawn up there Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. But that's not a set date. And we're not saying that parents got to come in, at 10 in the morning, got to be there. They can come through at 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. It depends on them. They could be walking in the road and saying they want to pop in the center for an hour. That's fine.
So basically they can come and go to meet their own
Yes,
schedule.
that's right.
Okay. You advertise for donations of toys and games. How's the response been for that?
We've had, it's not too bad actually, but we really like to get some more toys because that's basically what we're depending on now in order to open the center. So I mean, parents are asking us, when is the center going to open? We can't really say because we're depending on the toys. So once we get the toys, we get more toys, then we can get on the go and let everybody know when the center is going to open.
Okay, are there any final comments that either of you would like to make?
Well, I'd just like to say that if there is anyone out there now that got any toys, any donations that they would like to donate us, that it would be greatly appreciated if you can get them in as soon as possible, because the quicker we have them, the quicker the center will be up and running.
Okay, well, we'd like to thank both of you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
This month is Violence Prevention Month. A panel from the Help Committee came by our studio to discuss violence as well as violence prevention. A panel moderated by Kevin Dunphy, School Guidance Counselor, along with Julia Young, Public Health Nurse, Kathy Cutler from the Department of Human Resources and Employment, Barbara Barter, Principal at St. John Central High, and Constable Paul McDougall of the local RCMP got together in our studio this past week to discuss violence and violence prevention from their various job positions within the community.
I think violence is when any person would use force or some type of coercion to gain control or power over somebody else. And that can be done in any number of ways. I think a lot of people think of overt violence when they think of violence, like somebody beating up somebody or you know, physically attacking them in some way. And that is violence too. But there are also a lot of very subtle types of violence that we don't often think about in terms of, I don't know, if it's a severe or people do not view it the same as they would view like a physical attack. And I think when I think of that type of violence, I think of like bullying, for example, name calling, that type of thing. And that's violence of a, you know, a different nature, but still violence because it puts somebody in a position of control over somebody else, and you know, for a purpose for that individual to gain some type of control over somebody else.
So it's infringing upon somebody else's rights and putting, like in control over their decision, or
basically, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Anybody got anything to add to?
I suppose from a high school perspective, much of the violence that we see or we experience, I should say, for the right word, would be the more subtle types. We have the odd fight in the school, but not very many, not like physically out and out fights. But the students tell us from time to time themselves that they feel the effects of peer pressure and name calling and that type of bullying and harassing. That becomes very important and is taken very seriously by teenagers. And in that sense, I guess the form of violence that we experience the most is someone in the office saying, in my terms, that they're intimidated by another student or a group of students. And sometimes that's hard to see. You know,
This panel will be shown in its entirety on Wednesday evening, beginning at 7 p.m. Stay with us for more of This Week in Review, coming up in just a moment.
Just look at her. What a difference. Till a few months ago, we thought kidney dialysis was her only chance. But then a kidney donor was found. Someone took the time to sign a donor card and tell their family their wishes. Please, discuss organ donation with your family and sign a donor card today. You'll give someone like Michelle a second chance.
During March Kidney Month, when a Kidney Foundation volunteer knocks on your door, please make your donation a generous one.
As part of Girl Scout Week, the Boy Scout leaders here in Burgeo presented a copy of their mission statement to a local business, as well as one of the schools in our community for their help over the years.
Here today we would like to thank Variety Quick for sponsoring the Boy Scouts of Burgeo for the past number of years, and we would also like to give them a copy of the Scout mission statement that they could place here in the store to show our appreciation for what they've done for the Scouts of Burgeo. So on behalf of the Scouts, I'd like to give this copy of our mission statement to Mel on behalf of Variety Quick.
Thank you, sir. And on behalf of Jerry and Variety Quick Shop, we look forward every year to sponsoring the Boy Scouts. And again, thank you.
Thank you. Also, before we go, we'd like to give you this plaque, well, that we won at the last Santa Claus Parade. You were our sponsor again, and thanks to that, and we'd like for you to display this plaque on behalf of the Scouts here by our mission statement and everything.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. On behalf of the Burgeo Boy Scouts, I'd like to present this copy of our mission statement to Doreen Benoit for the school, because the school has been so great to the scouting movement over the past few years, or past 20 or 30 years, allowing them to use the school at no charge. And in appreciation, we'd like to give her this copy of her mission statement, and it being Boy Scout Scout Guide Week, we thought it'd be an appropriate time to give to you. So thank you for the use of the school.
Thank you very much. I'll find a nice spot in the school to put that up.
Thank you.
Grade Kindergarten and 1 students took to the ice on Tuesday afternoon. The multi-grade class went ice skating at the community rink.
You and Roy
students, along with a lot of moms and dads, spent the afternoon skating before returning to the school for hot chocolate before the day's end. Provincial court was held here in Burgeo on Wednesday. Constable McDougall is with us now with the court report.
Provincial court was held again in Burgeo on Wednesday, the 18th day of February. A total of 22 persons appeared to face charges. A 17-year-old male from Burgeo entered a guilty plea to a charge of breach of probation. That matter was set over to the 29th of April for sentencing. A 35-year-old man from Bonavista Bay entered a guilty plea for a breach of the wildlife regulations. He was fined $500 with 6 months to pay. A 36-year-old man from Bonavista Bay entered a guilty plea to a breach of the wildlife regulations. He also was fined $500 in relation to that charge. A 26-year-old male from Burgeo entered a guilty plea to a breach of the wildlife regulations, and he was fined $150 in relation to that charge. A 37-year-old man from Ramia entered a guilty plea to 1 count of common assault and 1 count of uttering death threats. A further count of prohibition of firearms was withdrawn by the Crown. The male was sentenced to 18 months probation with the conditions not to possess or consume alcohol and not to possess firearms. He was fined, in addition to that, $70 as a victim surcharge fine. A 44-year-old male from Ramia entered no plea in relation to 2 counts of assault. That matter has been postponed to April 29th. A 38-year-old man from Ramia entered a guilty plea in relation to a breach of the wildlife regulations. He was fined $150, payable in 60 days. A 45-year-old male from Isle of Mort entered no plea in relation to a charge under the Liquor Control Act, allowing consumption on his premises after hours. That matter has been postponed to April 29th for that person to enter a plea. 2 men, aged 56 and 47, both of Musgrave Town, appeared. They entered not guilty pleas to 3 counts and 1 guilty plea to a further count in relation to offenses under the Wildlife Act. All those matters have been set over to April 29th for trial and for sentencing on the 1 matter that was a guilty plea. A 33-year-old male from Isle of Mort entered a guilty plea in relation to a breach of the wildlife regulations, and he was fined $350 and his firearm was forfeited to the Crown. A 28-year-old male from Burgeo entered a guilty plea to possession of a weapon dangerous to the public. 2 further counts of pointing a firearm were withdrawn by the Crown prosecutor. He was sentenced to 2 years probation, and he's not to possess or consume alcohol and not to possess firearms. A 23-year-old male from Ramia pled guilty to 2 counts of supplying liquor to a child under the age of 16 years old and a count of breach of probation. That person was sentenced to a total of 6 months in jail in relation to those offenses. A 52-year-old male from Ramia entered a guilty plea to 1 count of violating his probation order, and a further count of violating his probation order was withdrawn by the Crown. That matter has been set over until April 29th for sentencing. A 30-year-old man from Burgeo entered a guilty plea in relation to 1 charge of theft under $5,000. He was fined $100 and given 5 months to pay. A 61-year-old female from Burgeo pled guilty to 1 count of theft under $5,000. She was given a suspended sentence, placed on probation for 3 years with a victim surcharge of $35 fine. She was ordered to write a letter of apology to Ingram's Foodland and to perform 100 hours of community service work. A 17-year-old male from Burgeo pled guilty to 1 count under the Liquor Control Act for illegal possession of alcohol, and he was sentenced to complete 60 hours of community service work. A 63-year-old man from Stephenville Crossing pled guilty to a breach of the wildlife regulations. He was fined $150. And a 34-year-old female from Burgeo pled guilty to 1 count of theft under $5,000. She too was given a suspended sentence, placed on probation for 2 years with the conditions to keep the peace and be good behavior and to perform 60 hours of community service work. And there was also a victim fine surcharge placed of $35. Provincial Court will again be held in Burgeo on April 29th at 10:30 in the morning.
The last regular Town Council meeting was held on Wednesday evening. We have Councillor Berder with us now with an update following Wednesday's meeting.
Good evening. The last regular meeting of the Burgeo Town Council was held Wednesday, February the 18th, 1998. The following issues were on the agenda for discussion. The petition to abolish and rewrite the Young Offenders Act is still at the Council office for anyone who would like to sign it. The town will be getting a person from Port aux Basques to come in and take a look at the water system to see what changes, if any, need to be made to improve the quality of water in this community. The town, in partnership with District 4 School Board, will be engaging Atlantic Engineering to do a feasibility study for a community education complex. Council received a letter from the RCMP concerning a problem with loitering and littering around the post office and other buildings in that area. A meeting will be set up in the very near future to discuss possible solutions to this problem. There was a lengthy discussion concerning the public response to changing street names. Some of the points that came out in this topic was that some street names have had no significant meaning to Burgeo. As a matter of fact, some of the street names were named simply because the tax payroll deduction or the tax roll deduction for the community had to have street names in order to assign numbers for poll tax. In some of the discussion, some of the points that were brought out were that if Burgeo is going to develop a sense of historical background, in particular for tourism, that maybe one of the things that should be looked at is a renaming of some of the streets, a renaming to the point that the names that would be given would have some type of historical background for the community. One of the examples that was given in the discussion was the schooner, the Duchess of Cornwall. This schooner apparently was built in Burgeo, and it was built by a local company using local produce. Many homes in Burgeo once had the picture of this ship on their wall. It was a three-mast schooner. In 1916, it was commanded by Thomas Gunnery, and 2 days out of St. John's, a German submarine took the crew off the vessel and sank the ship. The crew remained in Germany as prisoners of war until after the armistice. Councillors around the table felt that this was a part of Burgeo history which should be remembered and properly acknowledged. And therefore what a committee set out to do was to look at names that would be significant to this community, would have a story behind them. However, due to the amount of opposition to renaming the streets around the town, this whole idea has been dropped. Finally, the town, in partnership with HRDC, will participate and contribute to maintaining an economic development officer's position for another 12-month period in the community of Burgeo. On behalf of the Town Council, I thank you and good night.
Stay with us for Off the Rack, community events, and the BBS Playbill. All that after this.
The horrors of war. I'm Cliff Chatterton of the War Amps. Those of us who experienced war firsthand have a message for all Canadians. Never again. Never again must we risk global conflict. A military deterrent if necessary, but we must prevent war. Call this toll-free number to borrow our Never Again video series. This has been a message from the War Amputations of Canada.
Off the Rack. In past years, the talk around town around this time has been about the upcoming Lions snowmobile trip. But with no snow, this trip is quite questionable this year. This week as we scanned our tape racks, we came across a video of the first Lions snowmobile trip. Here's a look back now to March of 1989.
Well, here we are this morning, a fantastic morning, the 4th day of March in '89, and it's the first skidoo trip that we've made as a large group. And what you can see here now is the skidoos coming up over Big Bursway, and there's still, we don't see the last one coming yet, but we've got a total of approximately 73 skidoos, and it's a fantastic morning. Like I said earlier, it's minus 10 degrees, and there's a very little wind from the west, and right now at this time it seems like it's going to be a super day. As you can see, there's the skidoos. There's quite a string of them. You can see there's everybody's got their lights on, and well, anyway, Eric's the first one just coming around the point there now. We've got the scouts are going back and forth, making sure that if anybody's got any trouble, that they'll be looked out to. And like I say, it's quite a scene there this morning. It's so quiet and so peaceful, and there's to be able to see all of those skidooers, and they're all doing it for charity. We're raising this money for the Max Sims Camp for the Handicapped, and it's a great worthwhile thing that those skidooers are doing. And we've, as far as I know, we've raised pretty close to $3,000. And we're on our way going to Hope Brook Gold Mine, and we're going to be periodically stopping and talking to some people and asking them different questions and talking, and we'll be cluing up back at the community center. So with that now, I'll leave you and just let them do a little bit of footage here now. Of course, now I guess you can pick up the roar of the machines as they're coming up, approaching the very first hill.
Good evening, and welcome to the community event segment of tonight's broadcast on Run the Green. The Brightside Youth Committee TV bingo out on Wednesday was won by Mona Green. Congratulations, Mona. There is no bingo scheduled for this Wednesday because Wednesday is Ash Wednesday. The public library will reopen tomorrow at 3 p.m. at the new location at the high school. For the next 2 weeks, anyone with overdue books can return them with no fees being paid. RCSCC Bob Bartlett Sea Cadets will be having a wake-a-thon on Saturday, February 28th to help raise money to purchase corp jackets. The Sea Cadets would appreciate your support in this project and thank you in advance for your generous help. If your group or organization has an upcoming event planned, we would be happy to advertise it for you. You can contact the BBS office by Wednesday of each week to have items included in this portion of our broadcast. That concludes the community event segment of tonight's program. See you next week.
BBS Playbill. Join us on Monday at 7 p.m. for Cold, Wet, and Alive. This video comes to us from the Volunteer Search and Rescue Team. Tune in on Tuesday at 7 p.m. for Pansy's Garden. Then on Wednesday at 7 p.m. we'll have a panel discussion on violence. Tune in at 7 p.m. on Thursday for The Bandwagon. Join Pansy and the gang for craft stories and lots of fun Saturday morning, 11 a.m. on Pansy's Garden. And I'll be here again next week with This Week in Review. Next week's program will be followed by Together and Forever, Reg and Angela Brown. Please stay tuned now for the Youth Bandwagon. For This Week in Review, I'm Dave Cooper. Good night.